Alright, hello everybody, welcome to Tuesday tutorial number 6. It's been a while. How have you been? I believe the last time I did this was right before I left for the Florida Marathon, so it's been quite a while. Before I get started, just want to give a shout out to everybody who was actually at the Florida Marathon. Hi to everybody. Thanks for being so cool, coming up to me and saying hi. Met a lot of cool people over the week. And on the last day, actually, I was given a gift from Jeff and Amy. If you guys watch the tutorials at all, you'll know one of the times the big question was what kind of hair gel I used, and this is it. And so they got me a nice little Christmas gift. So thanks again to Amy and Jeff for that. I appreciate it. I will use it every day. So I just want to get that out of the way. But without further ado, let's get into the topic for today, which is everybody's favorite Pokemon, Durant. So, Durant has been causing quite a bit of trouble at the city championship so far. People have complained about it. They've said it's against the spirit of the game. They don't like losing to it. So I figured, let's talk about it. Let's see what you can do to start playing against Durant, maybe a little better. Maybe you're missing some stuff, and it's the reason why you're losing. And let's actually talk about the evolution of Durant over the course of the city championships, because it started off kind of straightforward and not very good, and then eventually people figured out how to build it a little better, and the deck got stronger. So we're going to go through a few games and see the process of how Durant grew into such a craze and started winning, and what you can do to give yourself better odds of playing against it. So, here we go. Let us jump into the first game. That is not the game, but that is. Alright, so, first game I have is from actually the first week of City Championships. This is Drew Holton playing against, I believe it's Joe Paul. And first of all, Drew is playing Typhlosion, so this is a strong matchup for him. But we're just going to go over some fundamentals of what you should and should not do against Durant. Now, okay, like 30 seconds into the game, we can stop already. Alright, what? Right away, this is point number 1 against Durant. Don't don't bench worthless things, because they will get catchered and it will be annoying. So right off the bat here, we saw Drew. He benched a Bellsprout. He knows his opponent's playing Durant. He knows he's not going to get first turn because it's a Durant deck. You don't actually get attacked for damage when you're facing Durant. All they try to do is deck you out, so you don't need to freak out and put down extra basic Pokemon. So kind of a brain fart here from Drew. We'll see as the game goes along why this is a bad decision. But lesson number 1 is don't bench extra things if you don't need them. Because Durant plays a lot of Pokemon catchers to try to drag stuff out and buy time, so you can just devour and devour. And every extra turn they get to devour without being knocked out is one step closer to you being decked out. So the first lesson is don't open yourself up to Pokemon Catcher, because every Durant deck will play them. So that's number 1. Now I think Drew figures his mistake out pretty quickly this game, but the main thing is don't bench things with retreat costs. Free retreat Pokemon like babies are not a big deal, because if they get catchered out, you just, you retreat them for free. So anything with a free retreat cost is not a big deal. The thing about Typhlosion, why it's such a good matchup is, well, first of all, it's fire and knocks out Durant pretty easily, but the main thing about Typhlosion is Afterburner. You get energy back out of your discard pile, so you never really miss turns where you attack and knock out Durants. But if you bench stuff like Mr. Bellsprout over there, you can get into trouble. So Drew's hand, unfortunately, is pretty bad, but we'll see his thought process throughout the game and how to approach playing against Durant. Now, Joe does start off with the Collector and 4 Durant, so pretty much a perfect start from him. And he's going to Devour for 4, and you know, even though you're playing Typhlosion, if you don't get a Typhlosion, you can still lose to Durant. And so Drew has a catcher, you know, you might as well play it. Go after a Durant that has no energy on it. Because if they don't have an energy, then, well, you probably won't be able to Devour that turn, huh? So he goes ahead and flares with Cyndaquil. I think that's the attack. It does 40 to a Durant. Now, Cyndaquil is not an effective attacker against Durant. You really need to start knocking out Durant in one hit, but Drew does have a little time here. His clock is going to get pretty short pretty soon, but you can't allow your opponent to just Devour every turn. And, I mean, if you knock out Durant in 2 hits, you're probably not going to win the game because they're going to Devour 8 cards with every Durant. We do see Juniper from Joe. So, we should probably skip through a little bit of this game, but we'll watch the first few turns. Here is another point about Durant. Eviolite. Eviolite and Special Metal, they prevent tons of damage from attacks. Right now, Drew Cyndaquil is actually doing 10 as opposed to the 40 he was doing before, so Cyndaquil actually won't be able to knock out this Durant. Now, Drew does have a Rescue Energy attached to his Cyndaquil, which is, you know, not great. So he's actually going to retreat the Rescue, knowing that people play Lost Remover, and just try to stall for time with Bellsprout dragging out a Durant, and this is pretty bad. I don't know if I would have done that because you just took an energy out of play for yourself, but looking bad for Drew. The main thing here is he doesn't want to bench anything else that has a retreat cost, and he's just going to keep getting devoured here. Oh, that will help for sure. So right away Drew has top decked an N, but I think he actually makes a mistake there by playing the Rescue down. You don't want to put Special Energy into play because most Durant decks play Lost Remover. This is something we'll get into more in the next game, but this game was just meant to show Durant in its early stages. Now, early on, people just kind of thought Durant was nothing more than a troll deck. You know, you just play it for fun. Haha, I get to discard cards off your deck, and if I win, I get to make fun of you the rest of the day. So, at this point, alright, Drew does get a Rare Candy and a Typhlosion, and gets the Afterburner, and these Durants are going downhill pretty quickly. So, there we go, there's one Flare Destroy. We're going to skip through a little bit. We do see... Alright, so Joe does have a Twins, and now we'll start to see what the whole point of this game was about. He grabs a Revive, it looks like. And there we go, Pokemon Catcher. So, what's going to happen here is Bellsprout will be catchered out. And then, since Typhlosion actually had to discard energy for Flare Destroy, he has to retreat the Bellsprout and also attach to the Typhlosion. So if he doesn't have an energy from his hand or a switch, he actually won't be able to attack this turn. So this is something you have to watch out for. Catcher will buy time. Catcher is super annoying. It just keeps dragging up stuff like this Bellsprout here. And then if it buys even one turn, that can mean the game. So imagine if Joe also had a card like a Crushing Hammer and a Lost Remover, and just discard the energy off the Typhlosion. Having that Bellsprout there would be horrible. I mean, Drew just probably wouldn't be able to attack this turn unless he had a switch, but in this case he does have energy, and then the Afterburner. And here we go. There's a knockout. And alright, so the lesson here is Catcher can mess with you. I think throughout the rest of the game, Drew maybe misses one turn because of Catcher, and I will fill you in. Joe, since this is the first week of cities, this is the infant stages of Durant, Joe does not play any Crushing Hammers or Lost Removers. and he gets dominated. uh, so early on, this is why people thought Durant was really bad. It didn't have any way to really buy time. It just kind of had Durant, maybe catcher, but it had no lost removers, no crushing hammers, no real threats. So you could really just get into a situation where you just had a Typhlosion and just win, and that was it. There was nothing Durant could do about it. So later on, people figured out, okay, we got to change some stuff here, and Durant started evolving, and this is when people started to get very annoyed. So let's move on to another game. Alright, so we do see Aaron Curry versus Jason Klazitsky here. We have a Zekrom deck. Zekrom Tornadus against Durant. And you would think that the Zekrom deck would be a favorite in most cases. I mean, they just get quick attackers. They just knock out Durant's. And they win, right? Well, that's not exactly how this works. For the sake of both of our time, I will fast forward through a lot of Jason's turns. But you'll start to see how annoying Durant can be when you piece everything together. Now, Tornadus, typically a quick attacker, but he does only do 80 damage, and when you factor in everything, which is Eviolite, Special Metal, Crushing Hammer, Lost Remover to remove the double colorless, things start to get a little dicey, and you can see how Durant can actually start to win games. So, I know for a fact this collector takes way too long, so we're going to skip ahead like a minute. And look, I skipped ahead a minute, and he's still only taken 2 Durants, so we're going to skip ahead even further, and his turn's still not over. We missed a victory medal or something. And, alright, so here's a Devour for 4. There we go. Nothing too big, but a Shaman. That could be big. So we see Aaron does have 3 double colorless in his hand. And he's going to Collector. Now, I just want to state for the record, I do not think Aaron actually screws up at any point in this game. And he still has a lot of trouble. Just starting with a Tornadus instead of a Zekrom can actually cost you the game. Just having extra Pokemon on your bench. I mean, Tornadus is actually pretty bad against Durant when you think about it. Eviolite makes it so he doesn't knock out Durant in one hit. It takes 3 energy to actually use Hurricane, and usually that means you have to either bench Pachirisu and Shaman, or you have to use double colorless. In any case, that is bad for you against Durant. So the lesson here is that when you just look at Durant, you think, oh, well, that's stupid, that deck doesn't work. You're actually not losing to the Durant as much as you are the other cards. You're losing to Lost Remover, Crushing Hammer, Pokemon Catcher, and then other tricks that people have put in. We saw in the last game that Drew had just a Bellsprout and a Typhlosion in play. So people have started to play Seeker in those situations where you just have one Pokemon and one on the bench. They can abuse Pokemon Catcher and force you to pick up the Pokemon that you want to attack with Seeker. And there's all sorts of tricks you got to look out for, so that's kind of the point of this tutorial, to see all the tricks. I don't know how long this Twins takes, but we'll see. I will skip a little bit. I am pretty sure. Yeah, alright, so we saw Crushing Hammer, discard the Lightning, and then a Lost Remover, remove the double colorless, and here we go. All of a sudden, Aaron just has no energy in play, and where does he go from here? He's going to have to bench Pokemon. He's going to have to bench Pachirisu and Shaman, and this is going to get ugly. Pokemon Catcher is going to start to get to him. More Crushing Hammers can come out. I mean, what exactly do you do if you're Aaron? And I guess you don't really have a choice. You have to bench the Pachirisu and the Shaman here. But it's going to be painful. Not only do you have to bench those things, But Tornadus makes you move a basic energy with Hurricane, meaning you're not going to have enough energy on Tornadus to keep attacking over and over. So, this game really shows everything that Durant can do. Tornadus normally is very good. You don't have to worry about when you have the double colorless on there. You don't have to worry when you have Shaman benched. I mean, usually you just get out so quickly that your opponent can't really catch up if you get a quick enough Tornadus and start attacking with catchers and all that. But with Durant, they can attack for 1 energy very simply, and they can take advantage of every single turn. So I think this is the turn where we start to see Aaron kind of fall apart. Jason's going to Pokegear again, and he's going to look at his top 7, see what he takes. Again, I apologize, his turns take quite a while, so we're going to skip through it. And you can see he still hasn't decided. And, alright, so we got a Twins. He's going to search his deck for 2 cards. Grab 2 cards. Now, I'm sure this turn we'll probably see another Lost Remover and a Catcher. So, even though Aaron looked good, look what's going to happen. There's a Shaman right there with no energy on it. It's got a 1 retreat cost. There's a Tornadus with a double colorless on it that's vulnerable to Lost Remover. And all of a sudden, he just won't be able to attack anymore. So, when people lose to Durant, sometimes they don't understand how or why Durant even wins in the first place. And I think this is going to show it right here. We see Catcher, Lost Remover, and Devour. And now if you're Aaron, what do? Unless you have like a switch in your hand, and well, he does have a double colorless and a junk arm, and he does have a switch in his discard pile. But even if he does this once, this same situation is just going to come up the next turn. He's just not going to really have anything. He does grab an energy search. Even if he attaches the double colorless from his hand this turn onto Tornadus, that's going to get Lost Removered again. And you can see, even though the first time this whole catcher nonsense might not work, Jason's going to keep doing it over and over and over. And eventually you're going to get stuck. Eventually energy will be removed from your field. Eventually you're going to have this Shaman up there, or if you're playing a different deck, a similar Pokemon will be stuck up there with no energy and a high retreat cost. And you're just not going to be able to attack for a few turns. So these are the kinds of things you have to try to avoid when you're playing against Durant. Don't bench extra things. Don't play special energy if you don't have to. And just kind of be aware of what you're up against. So I think the rest of this game plays out pretty much as you would think. Aaron just played a Lightning on his Shaman, and Catcher did a different Durant to try to stall for time, and he passed. If you retreat the Shaman there, it just gets Catcher back out, so you kind of just have to put an energy on the Shaman and pass. This is really your only option, and now you can see you're vulnerable to Crushing Hammer. Even when you retreat the Shaman, you're vulnerable to another Catcher. And even though you look strong very early on, slowly the Durant deck starts to peel you apart and takes all your energy out of play, and it gets you in a lock with Pokemon Catcher, and allows the deck to buy some time, gets more Devours off, and the other thing that people overlook is that when you use all the Crushing Hammer stuff and all the Lost Removers, your opponent needs more energy to play from their hand. And if they run out in their hand, they have to start playing supporters. Now we're going to see here, Aaron does have a double colorless. He can retreat. He actually started with a bunch of energy this game. He didn't get a turn 1 win. He didn't have all the stuff for it, but we did see he had a bunch of energy in his hand. He's probably played like 7 or 8 energy by now. You see 2 of those are sitting in the lost zone right now, but he no longer has one in his hand. So he's going to plus power, put a double colorless, and it looks like his 4th double colorless is in the discard pile from Devour. So he's going to have to Hurricane here for a knockout, and very quickly he's down to 3 prizes, but you're going to start to see just how powerful the trainers like Lost Remover and Crushing Hammer really are. And even though Aaron has taken these 3 quick prizes, he's going to run out of gas. There's just no way to avoid it. So, even if he does find a way out, he's probably going to have to play that Juniper, drawing 7 cards, making him deck out faster. And here we go. There's just not a whole lot he can do anymore. So, we're going to fast forward a little bit. I believe Jason did play an N. Yeah, it took him that long to play the N. So he's going to put Aaron down to 3 cards, which is another annoying thing Durant can do. Since they don't take prizes, they can always play N and put their opponent down to a low hand size, maybe disabling them for a few turns. You know, it seems counterintuitive to shuffle cards back into your opponent's deck, but in this case, you know, if Aaron needs energy to keep attacking, well, you play an N and put him down to a low amount of cards, he doesn't have the energy to attack anymore. And every extra turn that he doesn't attack you, that's another turn you get to devour, and it just gets more and more and more annoying. And eventually, you run out of cards in your deck, and this is what can happen. So, we do see a revive. I saw a Pokegear as well, so Jason will have a Twins for next turn. And I do see a Junk Arm in his hand, so that's going to be for a Lost Remover, I'm pretty sure. And, let's see. Of course, he will take a while to think about it. But there's a Junk Arm. Gets rid of a Seeker and a Super Rod, so you can see that Seeker I was talking about before. And there we go, Aaron already knows. Alright, I can't do anything anymore. You've locked me down to the point where I can't really win. And he just scoops up his cards. So, let's come back. Fix this real quick. Alright, so Aaron figured out pretty quickly that he didn't have a chance anymore. All of his energies got removed from the field, and even though he didn't get a very bad start, I mean, he actually did everything he wanted to do. He still lost. So, we'll have one more game here to see how to attack the matchup, and that will be the last one. Then we'll move on to questions and all of that fun stuff. So, we're going to have the third game here, which is one I actually just posted online. So, if you haven't seen it yet, here you go. This is Michael Pramelot facing Jason Kwasinski in the same tournament. So, right now we're going to see him start with the Zekrom, but he's playing a different deck. He's playing Magnezone Electric. And he's going to Collector right away to get Thundurus, Dynamo, and something else. So, when you're attacking this matchup, again, you don't want to have basics with retreat costs on your bench against Durant, otherwise they just get catchered and maybe stall for a turn. The heart and soul of your deck is the Electric. So, Electric, unfortunately, does have a 2 retreat cost. So, this matchup becomes a lot about managing your resources. Now, we do see he starts with Zekrom, which is not a good starter. Even though it's a good attacker against Durant, eventually this is what you want to use to face Durant. You really don't want to start with it because he's going to have to burn a switch. If you sit there and attach manually to a Zekrom, it's really not going to do anything. So he decides to go for a quick attacker with Thundurus, charge it up, which is not a bad play at all. He's threatening a turn 2 win if Jason wouldn't have anything. He's also giving himself a second attacker. Now, this game brings up something interesting that we haven't covered already, which is why I decided to go with this one. And, alright, so Jason's going to play Collector. We will skip 3 minutes ahead. No, only took a minute and a half. Well, alright, so he's going to grab the Rotom. So this is one of the things about Durant that can be bad. He plays Rotom because the Durant is prized. He's going to Mischievous Trick and then play a Victory Medal to draw the card that he put on top. And go figure, it's a Durant. So, lucky break from Jason, but that's alright. We'll just ignore that. So, he's going to get a turn 1 Devour for 4. and this is when things get scary. And then we also see that Crushing Hammer. Here we go. And automatically, Thunderous will not be attacking turn 2. He will not use Disaster Volt. So, also there's an Eviolite, so Thunderous won't even knock him out. So here we go. Already things are coming into play. Crushing Hammer has already set Michael back a turn. Eviolite has already made it, so Thunderous won't knock out the Durant. And now we see communication. Now, Michael makes an interesting decision this game. He decides not to go for Magnezone because it has a 3 retreat cost, and it has a power that just will help Jason deck him out faster because Magnetic Draw draws cards from your deck. I don't know whether this is the right thing to do or not. Magnezone is good for drawing through your deck, so you can find your switches and your junk arms, which are honestly the most important cards in this matchup. Switch allows you to get around those catchers, so you don't want to play junk arms when you don't have to, and you don't want to play switches when you don't have to. So we already saw one switch was used on the first turn. He kind of had to use that one, and then a junk arm got devoured. So things aren't going well, but they can definitely improve. Now the way you want to attack this is you want to get a Zekrom going, and you might be asking, even I asked myself, why is he using Thunderous? This is not going to be good against Durant. And the answer, actually, is sitting on Jason's bench already. So, eventually we will see Michael use Zekrom to start Bolt Striking for knockouts. However, Bolt Strike damages yourself. Now, normally this would be a good thing because you power up Outrage. After 2 Bolt Strikes, you actually put 80 damage on yourself, and then you allow yourself to just use Outrage to knock out Durant. But once you do 80 to yourself, that pesky little Rotom on the bench, he can actually attack. Using Plasma Arrow, it does 20 for each energy attached to your Pokemon. So, once you Bolt Strike the second time, you put 80 damage on yourself, and then Zekrom will have 3 energy on it. And then Rotom can actually knock out the Zekrom. So, Michael, his thought process here is that Rotom can actually knock me out if I go too aggressively with Zekrom. So I actually need to build up 2 attackers. Now this Durant just got a little trickier. Not only do I have to deal with the catchers and the Lost Removers and the Devours, I have to deal with Rotom actually attacking and knocking out my attacker. So this is something you also have to keep in mind. People do play Rainbow Energy so they can attack with Rotom. And, why not? You might as well. He can get some weird knockouts. So, we do see him Junk Arm for a switch here. And this is gonna come down to a lot of Crushing Hammers and such. And right there we do see a Bolt Strike. So, and he actually gets a Junk Arm out of his prize. So, this, at this point, turns into a war with Catcher versus Electric. And who can do what they want, honestly. It'll come down to Crushing Hammer, Catcher, and how many switches and junk arms Michael can get, and how many energy he can get. So, I don't know if either player really has control over the matchup anymore. This is why people can get very frustrated with Durant, and honestly, can just start coming down to coin flips. And, it's actually very skillful from the Durant side at times, because you have to know when to use your catchers, when to use your Crushing Hammers, whether or not you need to Twins for, say, a Revive right away, so you Devour for 4 instead of 3 here, or if you can wait a turn, and then you have to grab other stuff like Catcher and Crushing Hammer. So there are a lot of decisions you have to make when you're playing Durant. Even though he only uses 1 attack the whole game, there are a lot of other decisions that come into play. And for Michael's side, the decisions he has to make is how do I win the game without being stuck in the active position with that Electric. Now, he can't just not go for the Electric. Crushing Hammer will make it so his Pokemon will just get their energy discarded. He needs some sort of energy acceleration to attack Durant quickly enough. So he actually needs the Electric in play. But once he gets it there, it's a big target. So, Here's another catcher on this electric, and there we go. It's just going to get devoured. And there goes his last junk arm. The fourth one's actually in his hand, so there's going to be no more switches the rest of the game. And you'll start to see the power of Durant after this. I mean, Devour already got rid of 2 junk arms. He's already had to play 2 junk arms. I think it also got a switch. So he's actually out of switches and junk arms at this point. So he junk arms for the switch. Brings up Zekrom. He's going to have to Dynamotor. Yep, there we go. And attaches energy. So he puts both on the electric. And then Bolt Strikes once again. So you might think at this point, this electric is safe. It can't be catchered anymore. It's got a 2 retreat cost. And it's got 2 energy on it. So what's the big deal? Well, I think we find out soon. Even though that looks safe, it's got the 2 energy on it. With Pokemon Catcher can bring it out. And then Crushing Hammer can discard the 2nd energy on it. So then if you don't have the energy in your hand to retreat, your electric is still stuck there. So you can take all these precautions. You can do whatever you want, and it can still come down to just Crushing Hammer flips. So let's fast forward through Jason's turn because he takes a while to decide what he wants to do. Let's see. So we did see he did hit a Crushing Hammer on the electric. If you look over here, there were 2 energy on there before, and now we'll get a catcher, I'm sure. I think he's playing a Twins. So, I'm sure he's going to grab catcher for sure. And, I mean, honestly, if he gets a 2nd Crushing Hammer, and Michael has no switches in hand, this game could end like this. So, here we go. Now, it's interesting to note that Michael did not opt to play the Magnezone down this game. Maybe that could have helped him draw through his deck, so you would have had those switches and stuff in hand. Other cards you would want in your hand against Durant are things like N and N and Super Rod. Those are cards that can help you shuffle cards back into your deck so you don't deck out. And yeah, there's a catcher on the electric once again. And Jason actually, this is an interesting thing, he actually did not use Devour. Even though he had a Twins, he opted to catcher and Crushing Hammer instead of Devour. So he took the turn to actually try to trap Michael in the active spot instead of just using Devour. So this is something interesting from his side. And now we do see Michael does have the energy. So turns out he had it. But like I've said in the previous game, the first catcher, maybe the 2nd catcher, those don't always work. It's the constant use of Pokemon Catcher that's going to be annoying. Maybe the 3rd one or the 4th one. Those are what's going to trap the electric in the active spot. So this is something you have to worry about the entire game. It's not just, oh, he got it out once and I got a switch, so I'm safe. No, it's the whole game. He's going to keep doing this over and over and over and over. And there we see another Crushing Hammer, and another Lightning goes off the electric. And this just gets annoying. This is how Durant wins games. It's not just through decking you out by like discarding your crucial cards, just devouring 4 every turn. It's trapping you. It's taking away your options. And this is what Jason realizes, and this is why he's won so many games with the deck. These trainers are just so powerful nowadays that you can actually disable someone's entire strategy just playing trainers. And then a simple attack like Devour actually wins you the game. So, I think the rest of the game will just kind of see this happening. This electric keeps getting stuck in the active spot. And Michael passes. And, I mean, this just happens over and over and over. And really, what can Michael do about it? All of his junk arms did get devoured, so that is another aspect to Durant. It's honestly just a deck about denying your opponent resources, and that was a Tails on a Crushing Hammer that probably would have just ended the game. But it just denies your opponent resources. It discards cards from his deck, discards energy from his Pokemon, and forces him to bring up useless Pokemon and waste resources retreating it to the bench. So, We're not going to make you sit through all of Jason's turns, because, honestly, they take forever. But you can see this situation is bad. Even when Michael retreats, and he will retreat here. He's going to retreat and Dynamotor onto that electric. It's still vulnerable to a catcher again if he doesn't have an energy in his hand. And at this point, he's going to be running out. So, there's another knockout with Thunderous. Not sure why he opted to go for Thunderous there instead of just knocking out with Zekrom, but that's a discussion for another day. So, at this point, if I have to think just more catchers on electric is just going to end the game. And, yeah, skip for Jason's turn. Yeah, there's another catcher on electric. And we do see a victory medal. Actually, he actually got 2 heads for that victory medal, so he's searching his deck for a card. And, thinking that's going to be a Crushing Hammer. Let's see. And then, eventually, this electric is just going to get stuck. I mean, maybe... look at how many times this thing has been active. It's been active like 4 times already. There's been so many Crushing Hammers. Jason has just aimed all of his resources at discarding the energy off of electric and catching it in the active spot. So here's another Crushing Hammer. And there's a heads. And that is an ugly sight when you have electric in the active spot. It's got no energy against Durant. And I guess this is just what to avoid. It's 2 lessons in one. The first one is what to watch out for. The second one is to realize that even though you can do everything correctly, you can still lose to Crushing Hammer. So don't get too frustrated against Durant. It's kind of the ultimate coin flip deck, where it can win any matchup, or it can lose any matchup just based on its flips. And there we have it. Even when your opponent plays perfectly, though, you have a good chance to win, just based on your coin flips. Now, say if Jason were playing against an inferior player who didn't understand what was going on, think of how easy it would be for him to win this game. If his opponent just never put energy on the electric and it kept getting catchered out, think of what it would be like. This would just be a blowout. It would not be even close. So, it just shows you how strong Durant is as a deck overall. Just thanks to the trainers, and I guess that's all there is to it. You see another pass from Michael, and he realizes the game's over. So, there we go. Jason ends up winning that game. So, alright. There's that. Fix the camera again, because it lags like crazy. Alright, so basically the lesson for this tutorial is, what do you want to look out for when you face Durant? Devour, obviously, is a super annoying attack. It discards cards off your deck and prevents you from really doing what you want to do, just based on discarding the cards. So, in addition to Devour, we have cards you need to look out for. Number 1, Pokemon Catcher. Number 2, Crushing Hammer. Number 3, Lost Remover. And then there's the extra ones, like N is also something you have to look out for. And then kind of the less seen ones, which are Seeker, Rotom, and some people actually play Cobalion in their deck as an attacker, so they can sweep the game later on. Because most people don't bench extra stuff, and they play Cobalion down, and just start using Iron Breaker and knocking out all your stuff. So these are all things you have to look out for when you're playing against Durant, and these are all reasons why Durant has won so many city championships, at least in the US. So, hope you guys learned a little something from those games. They're actually really interesting, and games against Durant are actually more complicated than you might have thought. So, this is why it's doing so well, and hopefully you learn to play against it a little better. Even if you do play against it a little better, understand that you might just lose anyway. So, thanks for watching. That was the main part of the show, I guess. And from here, I will open up the floor to a few questions, and I will answer them. So, just ask some questions in the chat, and I will get to those right here. So, alright, ask away.